Perek Mem continues the exact same thought. We know that the best way to learn Torah is lishma. The worst way to learn Torah is with a pniyah, lishlei lishma. The middle, for a negative motivation. The middle level is learning Torah stam. Learning Torah stam has an aliyah simply by learning it over, and the same is true with davening, and l'chayda the same is true as mitzvah. So they have a Perek Mem. However, calls man so long that a person does not return and learn the same thing again. Lishma, says the Alter Rebbe, his learning cannot ascend. Afilu, even beyut sfiris, in the 10th sfiris, which is also known as the Beis Hamikdash, Hami'idis, which shine be'elama Yetzira v'Asiya in the worlds of Yetzira and Asiya. Yetzira is the place of the Chilul Chimu Tivim, and Asiya is the place of Bittul of Kavanah of Kabbalah. In other words, when you learn Torah Stam, you don't have to do tshuva for it, but you do have to learn it over so that it should ascend even to the lower levels of the Beis Hamikdash. Ki ha-sfiras ein bechinas halakus, because the sfiras are godliness or the Beis Hamikdash. And in them, mislabish and misyachad, eidin zei baruch mamish. In each world, there's a center. Remember, we talked about this at length in the beginning of Perek Lametes. Each world has a center. The center of the world is the Beis Hamikdash, like the brain of a person. The neshama is in the brain of a person. Each world center is the Beis Hamikdash, and the Shechina rests over there. Says the Alter Rebbe, in this place where the Shechina rests, there's eidin zei baruch mamish. Hashem's Ein Sof is there. Now remember the rules. The Beis Hamikdash is a place of complete bittul. Because the place of complete bittul, there's Ashras Shechina. Included in Ashras Shechina is going to be Eidin Sof. There's a Hagal later on Daf Nun Hey Amid Aleph, where the Alter Rebbe says that in this idea that there's Eidin Sof in the Beis Hamikdash, there's two levels. To this idea that there's Eidin Sof in the Beis Hamikdash, there's two levels. The higher level is that the Eidin Sof is in the Beis Hamikdash only of Atzilus. The primary place where Eidin Sof manifests is Atzilus, because Atzilus is a world of Ein Sof. Through the Beis Hamikdash and Atzilus, it manifests in the Beis Hamikdash of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. So, I would divide it into 3 steps. Step number 1, let's say Beis Hamikdash of Bria, Bittul. Because there's Bittul of Chachma, you have step number 2, there's the Shechina resting. And step number 3, you also have Eidin Sof, that the primary place of Eidin Sof is in Atzilus, and it's made in the Beis Hamikdash of each one of the lower worlds through the Torah mitzvahs that we do. Okay, and therefore, since in the Esses Sfiris, even of Bria, of Yetzirah and Asiya, that there's a place of Bittul of Chachma, and there's Ashras HaShechina, Eidin Sof. And therefore, if a person learns Torah, davens and does mitzvah, the soul cannot ascend or make him ascend Kadam Ad Hashem before God or before godliness, even in the Beis Hamikdash of Asiya. So even if you did Torah mitzvahs with no kavanah, not lishma, not shalei lishma, until you don't do tshuva, but until you learn it over again, it's not going to be parchal. It cannot meet Eidin Sof. And this is a quote from Tikkun Ezeh. Raket is only that Leimuda, his learning, Oila ascends Leichales Umedurin, to the halls and rooms, Shein Elamus, which is the periphery of the world. Shabahan Ein de Malachim, which the Malachim stand. Now, let me tell you what the next point is. We have 3 levels of learning Torah doing mitzvah and davening. Lishma, Lei Lishma, but not Shalei Lishma, and Shalei Lishma. 3 levels. For a good reason, for no reason, and for a bad reason. Okay? When you do it for a good reason, it goes into the Beis Hamikdash, Esesphiris, of whichever world, Atzilas B'Yitzis. You do it for a bad reason, you'll see later it remains in Asiya. If you do it neutral, no kavan, it doesn't go into the Beis Hamikdash of the worlds, but it does ascend, it does go up. But it doesn't go up to the Beis Hamikdash of the respective world, it goes up to the world. Remember what we discussed, every world has a center where the Shechina and the Ein Sof rest, the Beis Hamikdash, that's the Sfiras, and there's the whole world. And in the world, there are all the Neshamas and the Malachim, right? And all those other things. So when you learn Torah and the mitzvahs with no kavanah, it goes up to the worlds of Bria and Yetzirah, but not to the Batei Mikdash of Bria and Yetzirah. That's what he's saying over here, right? It ascends leichales or medurin shechitzenias elemes shebehen aim the malachim in which the malachim are standing. And the neshamas also. Meshkasav arachav zal b'shar nevuah peri beis. It says in Kabbalah and Shara Nevuah. Shamiatera shalei b'kavana. When a person learns Torah without kavana, nivraim malachim be'elam yitzira creates malachim elam yitzira. In other words, that the Torah goes up to the world of yitzira, but not to the Beis Hamikdash of yitzira. And when you do mitzvahs without kavana, nivraim malachim be'elam asiyah, you create malachim in elam asiyah, but it doesn't descend to the Beis Hamikdash of asiyah, right? All malachim have a body and a soul. And since malachim have a body and a soul, they cannot exist in the Beis HaMikdash of Yitzir and Asiyah. They can only exist in the Olam of Yitzir and Asiyah, right? So when the Rachav says the Lashon Shalei B'Kavana, right? What is type Shalei B'Kavana over here? When Reb Chaim Vital says Shalei B'Kavana and B'li Kavana, what does it mean? It means neutral. Not with a negative kavana, correct? And this is what Al Rebbe discusses in Kutas Achron. It will be a negative kavana. You'll see in a moment it stays in Asiyah. If you do it with no kavana, not a good one, not a bad one, so your mitzvahs go into Asiyah Ruchnis, but not to the Beis HaMikdash of Asiyah Ruchnis, and the Torah goes into Yitzira Ruchnis, but not the Beis HaMikdash of Yitzira Ruchnis. You understand? And then it continues. Avol Torah Shalei Lishma Mamish. When you learn Torah Shalei Lishma Mamish, so there's a difference between Shalei B'Kavana and Shalei Lishma Mamish. Shalei B'Kavana means neutral. Shalei Lishma Mamish is negative. He and Li is Talmud Chacham, I gather to be a Talmud Chacham and so forth. Says the Alter Rebbe. So then, Eine Eila Klala Ma'ila, it doesn't ascend upwards at all. Afilu even Leichales Umador Hamalacham the Kedusha, to the chambers and the rooms, to the halls and the rooms of Malacham of Kedusha. Now this word Kedusha, darf man gut verstehen what this means. Because Kedusha L'Cheida is the Beis HaMikdash. And here he's talking about Malachim that are not in the Beis HaMikdash. They're in the Olam. So upon them there's different Echolos, right? You know that 7 Echolos, right? The 7th Echol is Gehenim. In other words, in Yetzirah, there's different levels of rooms. There's outer rooms and inner rooms. It's all not the Beis HaMikdash, it's all Echolos. There's Echolos of Kedusha, there's inner more rooms, you understand? Like this Crown Heights, Williamsburg, Borough Park, and there's Manhattan. It's all Echolos. But there's Madregas in Echolos, you know what I'm saying? So the Torah and the mitzvahs go up to the Echolos of Kedusha. When you learn it with a negative kavanah, remains down here in this world, Hagashmi, Shumadar HaKlipas, which is the place of Klipas. So when you learn Teda Lishma, it goes up to the Beis HaMikdash of your respective world. When you learn Teda neutral, which is called in the Rachav, Shalei B'Kavana, B'li Kavana, it goes up to the respective worlds of Yitzir and Asiyah, but not to the Esfisfiris. And when you're doing it with a negative kavanah, it remains in this Elam Hazeh Hagashmi, right? You following with me? And he brings Meshikosa B'zeh Hagor. Meshikosa B'zeh Chele Gimel, Daf Lamed Aleph Amid Beis, V'daf Kuf Chof Aleph Amid Beis Ayin Sham. Now what is this Hagor trying to prove? The Hagor is trying to prove that there's not 2 possibilities, there's 3 possibilities. The best possibility is you did it with a kavanah, it goes to the Beis HaMikdash. The worst possibility with a negative kavanah remains in this Olam. The 3rd possibility is you're doing it neutral, but it goes up, but not into the Esfisfiris, it goes into the Olamus. You understand? That he's bringing 2 zayas to support this middle point. Look at the words. Hahi Mila, this words of davening and learning. Solka, it ascends. Ubaka Rekinchol, it breaks through the heavens. Right? Now, wait. That sounds like Parcha Le'ela, right? Parcha is a good thing, but look at the next words. The Isser ma the Isser. And whatever happens, happens. Either something good or bad, ayin sham. Now wait. If it's Parcha Le'ela, how can you say Tav, bish bish, good or bad? It has to be good. What's the teretz? Because we're talking about a learning Torah stam. Davening stam. Doing mitzvah stam. So it's Parcha, but not to the Beis HaMikdash. It's part of the Hechalos, what he calls the Hechalos Umadar HaMalachim the Kedusha. And therefore, sort of, it's like, it went up, but not into a place of Kedusha, and therefore it's still vulnerable. You understand? Ayin Sham v'daf Kufay Amar Aleph. Quote, Mila de'eraisa, words of Teda, is avid minei kala, creates sound. V'salig chol, it ascends. But here also, the word v'salig doesn't mean ascending into the Esfisfiris. It's ascending to the spiritual worlds, but to the worlds and not to the Beis HaMikdash. V'daf Kuf Samachas Amad Beis, quote, Kalin de'eraisa tzloisa, the voice of learning and davening, Bakin Akin, breaks the heavens, the holy rises up. So he brings, 3 or 4 quotes from the Zehar. And what is the point of all these quotes? That when you do mitzvahs, B'li Kavana, but it's not Shalei Lishma Mamish, this middle level, it does ascend to the worlds, but not to the Beis HaMikdash. But if you do it with a negative Kavana, I'm gonna ask you to do me a favor. Let's go back 3 lines, okay? Avol Teira Shalei Lishma Mamish, Milon Teira Shalei Lishma Mamish. Can Li is Talmud Chacham, to be a Talmud Chacham, and so forth. So then, Ein Eila Klala Maila, doesn't descend at all. Afilu even Leicholos Umadar HaMalachim the Kedusha, the halls and chambers of Malachim of Kedusha. El Nisheres Lamata Be'el Mazeh Hagashmi remains down here in this physical world. Shumadar HaKlipas, which is a world of Klipas. Ukmeshkasa B'zeh, it doesn't say it. The Pasuk says Al Pasuk. Ma Yisen La'adam B'chalamali, what advantage is it to a man's toil? Sheyam Al Tachas HaShemesh, that he toils under the sun. Says the Zayah. Tafilu amol deiraisa. A person toils in Torah. Avid begin Yikari Chuli, does it for his own honor, it stays in this world. It remains Tachas HaShemesh. You understand? But the Shakos, which is why the Gemara says, Ashrei, how lucky is Misha Balakan, one who comes here to the Gan Eden. V'Talmudei B'Yadeh, and his Talmud comes with him. Peter Shalei Nishal Amata Be'elamazeh doesn't remain in this world, but it ascends upwards. But this is only when you do it Lishma. So let's review. Teda, which is with a negative kavanah, remains in Asiyah, Hagashmis. Teda with no kavanah ascends to the base, to the Hecholos and Medurim of Malachim of Kedusha of Yitzir and Asiyah, but not to the Bas HaMikdash. And that's what this Hagah is trying to support. It is a middle level, which is not Kedusha Mamit, which goes to the Esesphiris, but not Klipa Mamit in this world. When we do it with kavanah Lishma, then it goes up to the Beis HaMikdash. You got it?